Welcome, beautiful people, to Camp Koji. My name is Joel. Thank you for joining me as I break down the biggest gaming news from the week that was on the only podcast you will ever need. On today's show, we're going to talk about Activision shutting down the H2M Mod, the Verge's Deadlock controversy, and more Xbox games heading to PlayStation. But first, I want to talk a bit about Black Myth Wukong. So reviews for the game released last week, and it currently sits at an 82 Metacritic, and several stories spun off of these reviews. First off, we found out only PC codes were sent out, and IGN revealed a rather interesting embargo rule. Outlets were not allowed to show anything past Chapter 2, and IGN noted that this is where they ran into the most technical issues. Now, IGN, actually, hold on. Before I talk about IGN, so this game, for those that don't know, is digital only. There's not going to be a physical copy releasing August 20th. I don't think that the developers have confirmed that they're going to print the game at any point. I think all they said was, hey, this is our first game, and they just weren't able to get it done in time. I think there is a physical case that you can buy in stores, but it comes with a download code. So for me personally, I own a PC, I own a PlayStation 5. The PC that I have would be capable of running this, definitely not the highest setting. I'm not going to have ray tracing on it because I think I have a 3080 right now. But I always, if I'm being told that I can only buy a game digitally, I usually would always prefer to buy the PC version. I feel like it's a lot more flexible. And then I feel like I have the added incentive of mods, right, that make the game a little bit more fun. So usually I go for PC, and it would seem that the PC version is a bit unstable. Actually not even a lot. Pretty much every review I read talked about stability issues, a lot of frame rate hiccups. Some people talked about crashes. IGN definitely seemed to have a lot of problems, which is, I think it's like the thing that I hate so much about modern gaming and modern reviews is either a lot of outlets are just having crashes, having a lot of issues, and just not really sort of noting them as they're playing the game, or you have outlets like IGN that are just very, very careful in terms of pointing out that they had issues. A lot of these outlets I've noticed frame rate issues and just technical issues sometimes become like a footnote of their reviews. And I think this practice sort of needs to stop. I've talked about this before, where if a game releases and it's unstable, and you notice this instability for each of these reviews, I can see a single review where someone did not bring up at least frame rate issues. That has to automatically knock a point off. I mean, that should be something simple for all of us to be able to agree with. That should be something that knocks at a minimum 1 point off of a review score. So I don't understand how anyone can review this game, give it a 10 out of 10, and then in that review talked about, oh yeah, we have frame rate issues. Then that, to me, that means you're not playing a 10 out of 10. Like I don't watch a film and, say like, wow, this film is a 10 out of 10, but then also note like, yeah, at some point, all of a sudden the audio desyncs, or the frame rate drops on the movie, or I saw a blue screen. Some of the VFX wasn't finished. Like I have to be able to knock a few points off for something like that. So I'm not going to get this game at launch. The PC version just doesn't look stable. So I thought to myself, let me wait to read a bit more of just general discussions, because now you're going to have way more people playing the game. So we'll be able to have a bigger sort of audience being able to test the game out. And then the fact that not a single PlayStation 5 code was sent out, to me, that's a giant red flag. There's just zero shot that I'll be buying that PS5 version. If you had it pre-ordered, personally, I would have canceled it already and just wait. You're better safe than sorry. Of course, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to be bad, but if a company is not giving out review codes, it's the same thing as hearing about a movie releasing and they didn't do a premiere, or they didn't send out screeners to reviewers. Something's wrong. It just kind of feels like you're trying to hide something. One of the last times this happened was Cyberpunk, where they sent out console review codes 10 hours before the game was supposed to actually release. Maybe that's something that'll happen this time. All of a sudden, PS5 codes are going to be sent out August 19th or something like that. But personally, I wouldn't trust it. But it is interesting. Like, IGN gets a lot of shit as an outlet, and some of it is warranted, I will say. But there are other times where I think they do have a lot of good writers, and I thought this was a really well detailed review. I think the person who wrote it, fortunately, I can write the person's name in my notes. I think he did a pretty good job with it. And this was, I read maybe like 10 reviews or so, and I couldn't find a single one that brought up that embargo. That to me is a huge deal. I actually saw a review that talked about running into technical issues after Chapter 2, but for some reason did not say, yeah, part of the embargo was we're not allowed to show you anything past Chapter 2. That's not right. That's not good at all. I like that in IGN's review, when they talked about issues past Chapter 2, they even put a disclaimer on screen saying, we can't show you what it actually looks like. And it seems like what they're planning to do is that when the game actually launches on August 20th, they're going to update the video version of the review to actually show these glitches, because he talked about there's one bug that he ran into where he thought the game was just done. I think he was saying he kept falling through the floor or something like that. That's a problem. Simple as that. It probably shows that the game should have been delayed yet again, but maybe it's different. Maybe it'll be more stable with a day one patch. I don't really know, but definitely not worth buying it immediately. We also, because of Black Myth Wukong, re-entered another round of is 8 out of 10 a bad game? And this is one of the worst things I hate about Twitter, is that for some reason every few months we have to have the same conversations over and over again. And what's frustrating about repeating these conversations is that we are allowing engagement farmers, we're allowing idiots, losers, people with bad takes to somehow control the conversation. Like we're allowing them to control the reality of the situation. And it's so frustrating because it's really fueled by people who have large accounts. Like, I think I saw Mighty Keith, which is a YouTube content creator, retweet this. He has like 100,000 followers. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's an objectively stupid take. It's not a take. It's not an opinion. It's not one that makes you kind of scratch your chin and think about it. No, it's an objectively false statement. Okay. Via IGN's own review scale, an 8 equals great. So 10 is a masterpiece. I think 9, the word they use is amazing. And I think 8 is great. If you're in the Major League of Baseball and out of every 10 at-bats, you get 8 hits, you're the greatest baseball player of all time, right? We know that 80% of 100 is a lot, right? So objectively, 8 means that person's opinion is that this is a great game. And for some reason, all it took was one dumb engagement farmer idiot comment that said 8 is too low. And now we have thousands and thousands of Twitter accounts that want to retweet it and rehash the conversation. It's like, we don't need to have this conversation over and over and over again. We can't let losers dictate reality. That's not how this is supposed to work, okay? It's objectively true. If someone rates this an 8 out of 10, even a 7 out of 10, that means it's above average. That means that person believed it was a great game. And then the other problem about this is that people thinking that there's such a thing as a professional review. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a professional review. You guys have to stop looking at reviews like this. Read a few reviews. Look at the name of the person that wrote it. A lot of outlets, they will put a link on that person's name so you could click on it and see other games that they have, other games that they've reviewed. You have to look at reviews like recommendations. And I wouldn't even say trusting certain outlets, but trusting certain reviewers is really the way that you're supposed to go about it. This is why I've been beating this drum for like 10 years that review scores need to be done away with. They add absolutely nothing. And I mean zero, unless someone can, show me an angle that I'm not seeing. No one has yet to convince me that review scores add anything. They only subtract, right? They reduce a 100-hour experience, and not specifically talking about Black Myth. I'm not sure the hours for this game, but whatever, a 30 to 100 hour experience, they reduce it to a single score. You post a review, people immediately just retweet the score. They talk about the score, the number. They definitely do not read the review at all to find out how you reach that number. And all they do is, if they're a fanboy, then they agree with the high number, or if they're really excited for the game, they agree with the high number. If they're excited for it, they're a fanboy and it's low, that's it. It's your fault. You're the shill. You're the idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. But that becomes a lot harder if you're forced to read the review rather than, having to just get everything from a score. Then another controversy that popped up, which I think was Screen Rant's review, was one of the negatives was that there wasn't, I don't have the note in front of me, there wasn't diversity or something like that. It's kind of weird, but if you read the reasoning for her, I think it was a female that reviewed the game, the reasoning sort of makes sense from the perspective of, this game is based on a book called, I think, Journey to the West, and there are female characters in there. So okay, I think that's a good take. But yeah, I also don't think that should be something that should subtract from the score, right? This is not a historical retelling of a real story, right? You're playing with a monkey god. Like, I don't think that that's something that should be a detractor. And then finally, another story that was making the rounds was a Google document reportedly set to select content creators who requested keys. It was originally debunked by VGC, but Forbes' Paul Tashley confirmed that the document was indeed real. And here are the do's and don'ts included. And it's important to note that this is not a binding agreement. It's more of a guideline that they sent to content creators who requested codes. So whether they were, YouTubers or streamers. And the only do is enjoy the game. But the problem is all these don't. So it starts off with, do not insult other influencers or players. Okay, like I don't see why. And that's kind of the pattern here, is they bring up a lot of stuff that if they never said this, none of this stuff would naturally come up if someone is streaming. Well, I would say most of it would not come up naturally by someone that was streaming or playing this game and talking about it on YouTube. So it's kind of weird. It's like, why are you bringing it up? This wouldn't be normal for us to have this conversation when talking about the game. That next up is, do not use any offensive language and humor. And for me, this is the first issue. This game is obviously was created by a Chinese developer, but this is America, okay? In America, we have access to freedom of speech, and offensive language and humor is not really offensive primarily to the person that's saying it, but usually deemed offensive by the person that's hearing it or listening to it. That's why you have all these controversies about comedians. I always say, if you think a comedian is offensive, shut up and don't listen to that comedian again, but don't tell everyone else that you were offended by it. That's not how this works, right? like for the most part, that's not how this works. They also say, do not include politics, violence, nudity, feminist propaganda, fetishization, and other content that instigates negative discourse. So a few of these are weird. Politics, I don't understand why you even bring that up. I mean, who's streaming this game and talking about, hey, who are you guys voting for, Harris or Trump, right? It's just dumb. Violence, to me, I don't understand that. This game is rated M. It's a very violent game, so I don't understand that. Nudity, what do you think? People are going to stream this playing naked? Like, I don't get it. The feminist propaganda and fetishization is definitely a direct result of the IGN article that called them out for, I don't know, it's like for sort of like a male chauvinistic sort of workplace, a boys club, if you will, kind of behind closed doors. That's probably what they mean. Like, hey, as you're playing this, don't mention that IGN article. But same thing, like if you're asking me to play your game, no one should accept this, especially if this was something where they're like, yeah, you have to sign to agree with this. I'd say no, you can keep your code. I don't want to play your game. If you're going to put all these parameters and try to limit my free speech and limit my ability to, if I'm playing the game and streaming it, to be able to talk about some of this news that came out about you, no. Like imagine Activision sending out Call of Duty codes and say, hey, you guys can't talk about any lawsuits we've ever been a part. Like, no, that's not how this works. Do not use trigger words such as quarantine or isolation or COVID-19. Once again, don't understand how any of that would come up naturally. Like, I kind of don't get it. I get it in a sense of like, this is China, and this could be like, the CCP has their fingers in this pie. That's kind of what it smells like to me. It's so unnecessary. Like we're over 4 years removed from COVID-19. Why would that come up naturally as you're playing this game? And then one of the big ones for me: do not discuss content related to China's game industry policies, opinions, news, etc. So once again, like, freedom of speech is very, very important. If I'm requesting a code, I think there are certain things that will make sense. Hey, please don't spoil the game. Please don't show the ending or blah, blah, blah. We would prefer if this particular mechanic was kept secret or something like that. Then, it's like, okay, there are a couple things there that I think is fair to and okay to ask and for the creator to agree to. This is one where it's like, no, hell no. If someone says there's nothing wrong with this, don't listen to that person ever again. There's something definitely wrong with these parameters. Our next story: earlier last week, a mod called H2M began trending. It was a mod for Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered that essentially brought over the popular Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer experience with fan-requested additions and changes. Though the mod had been in development for years, it didn't hit mainstream media until early last week, around August 11th. A trailer for the mod was shared. I believe the date it was shared was August 9th, with a release date set for August 16th. Then, a day before release, August 15th, the H2M team announced they received a cease and desist and are complying with the order. Since then, it would seem the mod was leaked into several discords, which has caused like this huge mess. A lot of people are talking about how it's unsafe. Some people are trying to create these safe links for them on different discords, but apparently I had seen one number at one point that there were 800 people playing the mod, but I think that was 2 days ago or a day ago. So that number probably has grown as this leak begins to spread. This is not the first time this has happened. I've seen this before where a team gets cease and desisted, and whoopsie, all of a sudden the mod itself just leaks and gets out there in public, and people start torrenting it and all this other stuff. So obviously fans were upset, very, very upset. They were looking forward to this. I had highlighted it on a daily game that this was announced, and the game was on sale, which was pretty cool. So people could get, it's normally $40. People could have gotten Modern Warfare Remaster for $20. Now, there were two main gripes from this shutdown. I want to address both of them. So the first one is, why not let this mod continue? It's free money for Activision. And that's kind of the way the guy looked at it too, which is like, yeah, this is just free money, man. These guys did all the work for you. Modern Warfare Remastered, the original, is not selling. It's, by all accounts from fans, borderline broken. By other accounts from fans, it's actually dangerous to be playing this on your PC. Apparently, there are a bunch of exploits or a bunch of holes that Activision never plugged that actually puts your PC at risk when playing this game. A lot of people were talking about you can use that as a reason to get a refund if you played over 2 hours. And a lot of people are saying, like, look, even if you play it over 2 hours, be aggressive, keep resubmitting it. And some people have gotten it through. Some people said they play for 6 hours and got it immediately. So sometimes you might have to try and get another manual review, another person to sort of get you your refund and get you your money back, because I'm sure a lot of people bought this with the express purpose of playing this mod. And now, of course, the mod was taken down. So why not let this continue? So what people need to understand is that whatever money they make off of Modern Warfare, sales of Modern Warfare Remaster, pales in comparison to the value of the intellectual property of Call of Duty. And I always look at this from multiple perspectives, where I think it would be beneficial for developers to open developers and or publishers to open a communication pipeline between them and mod teams, simply because mod teams really work out of just pure fan excitement. They're way more plugged into your fan base than you are. You can learn a lot from these mod teams. And on top of that, they are essentially working for passion. That's it. They're not doing this for money. They know that they can't sell these mods for the most part. Some of them take donations, but other people don't even open up donations. And a lot of them do this because it's a great way for them to flex their muscle and gain experience and, you know, put something like this on their resumes and stuff like that. So there is sort of a bridge that could be built where there's sort of a beneficial relationship between a publisher and a mod developer. And we've seen it before a few times. You know, very recently we saw it with Bethesda with the Fallout London mod. That's a full overhaul. These guys just basically released a whole brand new game. And I believe they did reach out to Bethesda and get their blessing because they knew that they were doing a lot of work and they knew that, you know, it was a possibility that this could be shut down. And they reached out to Bethesda, and the way those things work is it's very much like a handshake agreement. Bethesda's not going to put it down in writing. They're not going to, you know, sign a contract that says we guarantee you won't shut down your mod. That's not how any of this works. But sometimes developers will make requests like, "Hey, can you just make sure you write somewhere we're not affiliated with what you're doing." But the fact that they even let them put Fallout in the name, right? They didn't have to name it anything else, you know, London something. They let them release the mod as Fallout London. Shows that they were interested in kind of, once again, like that, building that bridge between them and developers. And I think the only other recent time that I can think of was Capcom or Resident Evil 4, the HD mod. That mod was being worked on for years, and I think it was worked on by just one or two people, and they did a lot of work. I feel like I read somewhere that one of the guys actually even flew to Italy and like rescanned a couple of the scans that they did for the original game just to get a higher resolution on them. And that mod was being worked on and releasing in the same window that Capcom was creating, you know, the Resident Evil 4 version that came out recently, that sort of remake rehaul that they did. So Capcom was in a position for all intents and purposes to shut it down because they could have looked at it as like, well, we're about to release a rehaul. I don't want anyone playing my old game. But I think what Capcom understood was that, number one, it required a copy of Resident Evil 4. Number two, the Resident Evil 4 rehaul is such a different game from the original Resident Evil 4 that if you played one, you did not play the other. I've mentioned this to many people. If you played the original, you have not played the remake. If you played the remake, you didn't play the original. Like, there are shades there, and there are a lot of comparisons, you know, sometimes in the pacing, but they're almost two completely different experiences. If you haven't played both of them, I feel like you're missing out. So I think Capcom looked at that and they said, you know, it would kind of be, I think, beneficial for people to play the original game. And these guys just did the work. We don't have to pay anyone to up-res anything. And I think they did. Not even I think, I know that they actually did also put a bunch of quality of life changes in it, because that's what I did. When I found out about the HD mod, I think Resident Evil 4 went on sale for like $5 or $10 at some point on Steam. Bought it, downloaded the HD mod, pretty easy, painless to install. And it was a great way for me to replay a game that, you know, I played when it first launched on GameCube, right? It's been such a long time. So that was another good example of a sort of a bridge being built where it's like, okay, we can actually all parties can benefit from this move. I'm going to be able to make some profit because from now until the end of time, anytime someone says to themselves, now I want to play the original Resident Evil 4, the HD mod really is the way to do it. When you search Resident Evil 4 mod, that's the one that pops up. That's like the definitive mod that you now need for that game. And it is going to increase sales because that game is really old. So if I'm recommending it to someone, I'm saying, hey, if you have a PC, get this mod. But the other half of that people need to remember is that Capcom would have shut that mod down Bethesda would have shut down that Fallout London mod if it did not benefit them. So this is the key point in all of this. If Capcom was already rebuilding that original Resident Evil 4 to put out an HD mod, there's no way they would have given them that blessing. They would have told them, nah, I think you guys should just stop working on it. You know, if Bethesda was working on Fallout going to London, or if they had any intention to do it, they would have told them, no, you can't make that mod. Todd Howard has said many times before that he's not interested in taking Fallout outside of the United States of America, right? So, and we've seen it with Take-Two, right? Take-Two was fine with all of the RP mods and no pixel and all that stuff when it came down to Grand Theft Auto 5 because they benefited from that mod, right? Then they even went as far as to buying that entire team out. But you'll notice that they shut down any overhaul mods, right? Mods that were trying to bring modernize Grand Theft Auto 4, modernize San Andreas, modernize Grand Theft Auto 3. Those were shut down. Why were they shut down? Because Rockstar wanted to sell GTA Definitive Edition. It really is. It kind of just really is that simple, right? And that's the way that you have to look at it. You can't look at it as like, well, why can't you guys be like Valve? Why can't you guys be like Bethesda? No. That's not how any of this works. Those companies would also shut you down if they couldn't benefit from this. So that's really what this is about. The guy who made the mod, or one of the people who made this H2M mod, claims that some insiders at Activision told them that Activision was worried about Black Ops 6 sales when it came to this game. Some people say that that's ridiculous. I don't think that would be the primary reason for a cease and desist. That's definitely, I can tell you right now, I can guarantee you that's not the primary reason for the cease and desist. The primary reason for the cease and desist is Activision doesn't want anyone playing with probably one of, actually not even probably, definitely one of the biggest intellectual properties in gaming history, right? And the thing about it is some people will say, well, Joel, what about all these other mods that are out there? I'm like, those are small potatoes. The only time a mod really gets shut down is when it sticks up. It sticks its head too far up above the ground. And that's what happened to this video game. But the thing about it is that the reason why people at Activision might say like, oh, this might affect Black Ops 6 sales. It won't affect sales at launch, but it can affect the tail of a game like a Black Ops 6. And the reason why is because anytime sort of a lull is introduced into Black Ops 6. Maybe there's an update that weakens a weapon or some method that people like. What happens, right? YouTube, TikTok, every streamer, every Twitter, dead game, done, dead, mid, garbage. You guys need to fix this. And now those people say, I'm just going to go play Modern Warfare 2 mod because it's better. So it can cause these issues sort of in between these Call of Duty releases. And the thing about it is that Modern Warfare 2 was built in a time where video games were built once. That was the goal. And people need to realize that markets do affect game design, right? So when you think about when games only existed at arcades, what happened? Games were notoriously difficult. They had to be notoriously difficult because that's how I made my money. If you can finish my whole game on one quarter, I'm not maximizing my profit. What happened when those games came home? Those people at home were saying these games are too hard. What happens when the games coming back home are too difficult? Those people don't buy more games because they're too busy trying to finish the game that they're playing. So not only did the games get easier, but you had companies like Nintendo establish hotlines where you could call if you get stuck in a game. Because for Nintendo, if I have people on my phone that tell you how to get past that puzzle, that means that I can help you finish that game faster and you'll go to the store and buy another game because you're finished with it. So markets do dictate the way that games are built. And Modern Warfare 2 is a perfect example. There's a reason why Modern Warfare 2 doesn't exist in the year 2024. It's because that game was built to be only sold to you one time. Each consumer, I can only make whatever the margin would be, $30, $40 off that one person one time. Activision's just not going to do that anymore. So you might look at it as like, oh, they're going to be selling Modern Warfare remasters left and right, $40, whether it's 40 or it's 20, the game's going to be selling because of this mod. But the problem is that they only sell that game once. And you get to have fun with this game forever. And I'm sure the people who run this H2M mod are gonna try to update it and listen to feedback and add and update and upgrade the game and maybe add more camo skins. No, Activision can't let that happen. That's the reason why Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer was never remastered. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's a perfect video game. It's a perfect multiplayer experience. It's very pick up and play. And I've talked about this recently where a lot of people miss these types of games, but they're just not going to do it because they're not interested in selling you a game just kind of one time. So that's really the reason why they shut this game down. The other thing I've noticed is people accusing Activision of placing the game on sale for a week to capitalize on purchases, knowing they were going to shut the mod down. Is there a 0% chance of this being true? No, I'm not going to, I won't say that much. Is there 100% chance this is true? No. And you have to, this is the difference between, because I know that journalists and media get a lot of shit. I don't think I would call myself a journalist. There are certain points where I do feel like, hey, I'll take the term investigative journalist. There's some YouTube videos that I've spent hours and hours researching on. But what I feel like brings me closer to a journalist than just a content creator or someone who tweets random stuff is that when a theory is introduced, I go through the method that a journalist would go through. And that method is close to like a scientific method, where when someone brings up a statement, I'm trying to disprove the statement. Other people are trying to prove that the statement is correct. So that's how you have creators like Nick Merckx put up a YouTube video saying, oh, Activision scammed their audience. People like that always want a sensational story, right? It's a great story to think that, wow, look at this proves once again, you bring up the history of Activision being greedy. Look how greedy these guys are. It's such a sensational, it's a good story. Human beings love good stories. But you're not trying, you should not be trying to prove that it's right. You should be proving that it's wrong. And the first thing I did was, well, let's look at the sales history of the game. The game goes on sale once a month, like clockwork, for at least the past 5 months. And over the last year, at regular intervals, is dropping down to $20. So it's normally a $40 game. It's regularly dropping to $20. So I feel like that alone throws water on this theory. If this was their goal, they would have done a PSYOP to get more people to learn about this mod earlier so they could collect $20, for like a month instead of just a week, right? And on top of that, once again, this game would have been, at $20 for a month, not a single week. The other thing about it that would make this such a ridiculous thing to think about, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar company. Do you guys think that a multi-billion-dollar company has meetings and they sit down and they say to themselves, guys, check out this new trick for us to trick people into spending $20. There's this mod coming out. We're going to drop it to $20. Hopefully people play more than 2 hours. They can't refund it. We take their money and run. Cease and desist the mod. It's just not realistic, guys. That's just not how this stuff works. It's also, a lot of people are like, well, why did they cease and desist the day before? As I said, this didn't hit mainstream media until around August 11th. That means that it took them 4 days to send a cease and desist. That's not a long time. I've noticed that a lot of gamers don't understand corporate structure. It reminds me a lot when I was at Nintendo and people would come up to me because I used to run all the tournaments and they'll be like, Joel, it's a great tournament. Why don't you do another tournament next week? And I would tell them it took me 2 months to make that one tournament. And the reason why, of course, it doesn't take me 2 months to come up with rules and get the equipment, but it takes me that long to go through all the red tape, to go through legal, to go through all these different people on Nintendo in order to get that tournament live. When you run with a corporate structure, it's just not that simple. So when something like a cease and desist, a lawyer doesn't do that in a bubble, right? A lawyer doesn't do that on his own. So the other thing is that these lawyers don't spend all day on forums and Reddits. Hey, what's the new mod? They're not on Nexus Mods every morning, right? That's not how this works. It's either in the newspapers, right? Or it's on the front pages of major outlets. Your IGNs, your GameSpots. The moment that it gets hit on there, that's when it hits their radar. which is why I said that August 11th was probably like the time that it hit them. It was trending on Twitter. That's the one where the chances that a lawyer or someone that's within that strategy team within Activision, that's when they would have heard about it. It's rare that you would hear this from an employee. And this comes from experience. As Nintendo employees, we see a lot of mods, right? Because we're still plugged into gaming. The chances of a Nintendo employee then snitching and sending like an email or calling legal and say, hey, you should check this out, is really slim. Because believe it or not, the majority of people that build these games or work at these companies are gamers and fans just like you guys. And they're not snitches. They're not going to want to spoil the fun. So they just keep quiet. So usually the only time that a cease and desist is even discussed is when legal finally gets it. The other thing is that a lot of people are talking about, oh, Xbox owns this now. Phil Spencer's supposed to be for the gamers. Why didn't this change this? Phil Spencer had absolutely no idea this was happening, okay? When something like this happens, a legal team has the autonomy. They have the authority to be able to have that discussion amongst themselves. They might bring in a few leaders from Activision to make them aware of this mod and maybe get their opinion on it. But people like Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, Sarah Bond, they're not going to be involved in these conversations. The other thing is that Phil Spencer's going to side with Activision, the legal team. He's not going to side with you. He knows how important intellectual property is. Don't let PR speak fool you. Don't let that fool you when Phil Spencer talks about how much of a gamer he is. He's also the head of this huge company. So he's not going to put the intellectual property at risk. Just so you guys can play Modern Warfare 2. That's not how sort of any of this stuff works. So in conclusion, it does suck. Yes. Especially a cease and desist the day before. That sucks. But there is a little bit of, like I said, a window of doubt. I do not think that these guys put a cease and desist order together in 2 hours and then said, we'll send it out on Friday. We'll send it out right before the mod launches. Like I said, you guys think like that. Corporations don't. All right. These are lawyers. They're not playing those games. They're not going to wait till the last minute and be like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we did the day before? No, guys, that's not how businesses and corporations work. It's just not a realistic scenario to consider. Next story, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I talked about this a lot in a separate YouTube video. You can find it on the channel. This is about The Verge's Deadlock article. So last week, The Verge's Sean Hollister published an article titled We Play Valve's secret news shooter Deadlock. Now, this game leaked 3 months ago, but has yet to be officially announced by Valve. The Verge received an invite from a player currently in the beta. They did not sign an NDA, did not enter into a formal agreement with Valve, and they did not accept an EULA, which is End User License Agreement. The only sort of gate that they encountered was a pop-up that acknowledged that the game was an early development build and asked that the player do not share anything about the game with anyone. The Verge was instantly accused of being unprofessional and breaking Valve's trust. So in that video, I really go in depth as to why it's important that we allow journalists and media to have this type of autonomy and responsibility when an NDA is not involved. You don't want an outlet to withhold a story because they're concerned about how it will affect a company's bottom line, how it will affect a company's marketing rollout. That means then that at that point, the journalist is not independent news and they are working on behalf of the developer or the publisher. That's not what we want. But I think what's happening here is that I think people are trying to have two different conversations simultaneously, where there's one part of this, like I think that we all have to agree on. If there's not a formal agreement, if there's not an NDA involved, then The Verge is well within their right to publish this article and even publish that video, right? It was an invite from another player. The game had an open invite system, right? So what happened is it looks like around the end of July, they changed the way the invite system worked. When we first learned about this game when it leaked 3 months ago, we were told that the game was currently open to Valve friends and family, which means that if you were an employee at Valve, then you were able to send it only to trusted friends and family. Then it looks like at the end of July, they changed that so that anyone playing the game, so maybe it was one of those friend and family you invited, now had a number of invites that they then could share with anyone. So it could be friend or family. Heck, they could have sold access through, without telling anyone if they wanted to, I guess. And the mistake that Valve made was they didn't introduce an NDA. I guess I could understand when you keep it with your employees, friends, and family. Maybe there's a bit of trust there of like, okay, guys, obviously don't share anything. But you have to be able to acknowledge that Valve made a mistake when they opened it up to anyone pretty much to get an invite, and they did not enforce an NDA. I remember when I signed up for the alpha for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, I definitely had to sign an NDA. And then while playing the game, 75% of the screen was like letters and numbers to identify my footage in case I leaked it, right? It just seems like Valve truly kind of doesn't care. I'm not going to say like it's part of their marketing rollout, but they truly don't care. There's been YouTube videos up for months. Valve is well within their right to contact YouTube and say, we want you to take this stuff down, right? We want you to shut it down. The path that they've been taking is they've just been banning people. They connect your account with videos that have gone up, or I guess if they see you actually talking about it on the subreddit, then they just ban your account. And to them, that's the enforcement that they're willing to go towards. Twitter is filled with videos and information. None of it was, sent cease and desisted or anything like that. The Reddit is over 13,000 people is in the Deadlock subreddit, filled with information about the game, right? There's a video, I talked about this before, a 22-minute, it's a 55-minute video showing every single hero and ability. It's been up on YouTube for 2 months. Valve could take that down tomorrow if they wanted to. It's well within their right. All they have to do is click a few buttons. So I think that they don't care. I think they look at it as like, our core audience is, now they know at least a little bit about the game. It'll be easier for us to explain it when we announce it. So I think there's two conversations here. So we have to agree that it's well within their right. But in my opinion, yeah, I think that it could have been handled a little bit better. If I'm one of these people at The Verge, I would not have wrote this article. I would have released this article. I would have written it. I would have recorded video, but I would not have released it until Valve officially announced the game. And I think that's the thing. We have to look at it as like everyone's going to do things differently. That's how, every editor of every website is going to be like that. But I'm sure that this went through all legal and all the lawyers, and they knew that they were within their right to do it. So I think it's okay to criticize whether you would or you wouldn't, but I wouldn't say like, oh, this is wholly unprofessional. I kind of wouldn't go that far. This is not really a secret. Like I said, it leaked months ago. Valve is not trying to hide this. I just sort of look at this as like, if IGN is able to get a photo of this Nintendo Switch 2, and it's because they snuck into Nintendo's headquarters, that's awful, right? That's bad. But if they release a photo of the Switch 2 because a Nintendo employee decided to go to the bar and start playing with it, in public, then I think we have to agree that it's well within their right to do it. The question is, they have to ask themselves like, damn, should we do this? Should we do this or not? But then at that point, you're saying, should we keep Nintendo's secret for them? Or do we capitalize a bit on the mistake that their employee chose to make? And I think that's really what this sort of comes down to. So yeah, check out that video if you haven't, if you want to hear more thoughts about this story. And finally, I want to end by talking about Xbox. So last week, we got another rumor regarding an Xbox exclusive coming to PlayStation. So I want to talk about the order of events that happened. So noted industry insider Shinobi602 responded to a Reset Era post wondering when the next round of ported games are coming to PS5, to which Shinobi replied, "What are you doing next week?" Which is interesting because next week, now this week, is Gamescom. Then another noted leaker, Exodus, quoted a Twitter post with a Cinco de Mayo graphic implying that the game would be Forza Horizon 5. Windows Central's Jez Corden then added that he could confirm it was not Forza, but could not confirm what the title was. Exorcist then tweeted that the announced game would not be Starfield, and that he can confirm Forza Horizon 5 is definitely coming to PS5 within the next couple of months, even if its announcement doesn't happen next week. Then an earlier leak from January resurfaced, and a lot of what was said in that leak has since come true. The leak stated that Xbox will announce multi-platform plans. That came true. Id Software's next game was no longer an Xbox exclusive. That came true with Doom: The Dark Ages. Bethesda's next few games have been pushed to multi-platform. That hasn't come true yet. That leak correctly predicted that Indiana Jones was first person, face model after Harrison Ford with a Troy Baker voice. That came true. Hideo Kojima was making a movie, which came true with the announcement of Fizzant that's being made in conjunction with PlayStation. So part of this original leak stated that Microsoft Flight Simulator would be going multi-platform. And as we know, that has not come true yet. So what we know seems to be very close to fact is that very soon another Xbox game is going to be announced for PlayStation, coming to PlayStation. Tom Henderson from Insider Gaming says that beginning next week, I'm not going to quote verbatim because I'm not sure exactly what he said, but I think he said along the lines of around next week is the beginning of sort of the next phase of Xbox games going multi-platform. And so it looks like right now, two games are rising to the top. It's either going to be Microsoft Flight Simulator or it's going to be Indiana Jones. Yeah. So look, all in all, with this whole strategy, I think that we need to stop discussing this from the perspective of, what is Xbox doing? I think it's very clear what their plan has been. And I'm actually happier that there are more Xbox games being announced coming multi-platform because it makes it easier for these Xbox stans and really core fans to just accept that this is now the future of Xbox. This is just the direction that they're heading in. And I said this when I think it was when Doom: The Dark Ages was announced launching on PlayStation 5. The moment that happened, it was done. That to me was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's the wall coming down. That's the vault door being left open. That was the indicator that I was saying when they announced those original four. I said, these all make sense. They're older games from Xbox. Xbox gamers are going to understand. They're going to still feel like they're the priority. When they buy their console, they feel special. It doesn't sort of break the bank in a sense. But I said that there will be a game that's going to break open the floodgate. Doom: The Dark Ages was that game. That's the one that, to me, the moment that they announced that as launching on PlayStation 5, it's done. To me now, this means that every single Xbox game is coming to PlayStation at some point. And I literally mean every single one. If Gears of War, there's always been these rumors of Gears of War Trilogy getting remastered, that's definitely coming to PlayStation. If the Halo Trilogy gets remastered again, that's coming to PlayStation. At the very least, I can see Halo Master Chief Collection coming to PlayStation, even if it's not Halo Infinite. Every big name game that they have is now coming to PlayStation. It really is just, I'm not going to say, oh, it's over now. It's really more like this is just a reality of where Xbox is heading. Whether you agree with it or you don't, this is just what's going to happen. And I think what people need to remember and understand and come to grips with is that Xbox did not do this out of choice. I think people to this day still vastly underestimate the disaster that was Xbox One. Like, we all truly underestimate it. And even at one point, I sort of underestimated, like, okay, that couldn't have been that bad. Until the moment that Phil Spencer had that interview, and even he said, like, we lost the worst generation to lose. I was like, yeah, he's actually 100% right. Where when you really think about Xbox as a business, they've never ever been in first place. The closest they got was Xbox 360, right? And even with Xbox 360, as successful as it was still very neck and neck with PlayStation 3. And then Xbox took their momentum and shot it in the face pretty much with the release of Xbox One. It really was that big of a disaster. It was $100 more than PlayStation 4. It brought a camera that most people never wanted or used. Within a year, it dropped like $150. And then to make matters worse, it was the moment that Microsoft really showed that they can't deliver on software. They went with this whole plan of thinking that everyone wanted to watch football while playing a video game with that whole split screen thing that they did. So they obviously miscalculated, and it really was the worst one to lose. You'll notice that around that same time, Xbox said all of our games are coming to PC day one. I can tell you right now with 100% certainty that if Xbox One was selling at the same pace as PlayStation 4, those games would never be coming day and date to PC. It would not have happened. They would have done, I think they still would have done it, but they would have done what PlayStation is doing now, where Gears 4, Gears 5 would have released, and then the PC version would have come a year, 2 years later. Maybe they would have added crossplay, cross progression, stuff like that. There's zero shot that Xbox would have done day and date. So I think people need to understand that this is an extension of that. This is another moment where Xbox is saying we have to do this because we're not selling enough hardware. These companies, their bread and butter is the hardware because that's the gateway. That's like the gateway drug. That's the gateway to profit, because PlayStation is not making money off of PlayStation 5. They're making money off of every game that you buy. They get 30%, even more, even juicier if you buy the digital copy. They get 30% off of that Deadpool skin you bought for Fortnite. They get 30% off of that weapon skin you bought for a Call of Duty every single time. And the only way to collect that 30% is if you sell hardware and someone buys it through your hardware, right? So Xbox is now at a point where that 30% that they loved during the Xbox 360 era is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, because their player base on Xbox as a console is starting to shrink. So Xbox can put out these really cool numbers of, hey, check out how many players we have. But unfortunately, those players include PC players, where if you bought the game through Steam, they're not collecting that 30%, right? It also includes mobile players, where I guess, there's a percentage there, but, we're not talking about core gaming here. So it's slanted sort of in a sense, or a bit. So I think what makes the pill easier to swallow for Xbox fans is that these moves that are being made are made purely for survival. It's either you do this or the Xbox brand gets shut down a lot faster than if you didn't do it. And on the YouTube channel, if you haven't seen it, I have a video called Xbox's Future Explained, where I talk about my theory of, hey, there is sort of a window of opportunity here, another window of opportunity for Xbox to capitalize. Because I think that a lot of the choices that Phil Spencer made during his time were good ones. I think, all those studios that they purchased were good ones. The problem, though, is that you can lay out, if you're coaching a basketball game, you can lay out the best play that you've ever written. If the play isn't executed to a T, you're going to miss the winning shot, every single time. And I think that's what happened with Xbox, is that the plan was good. Everything on paper, the map, everything looked really nice. The problem was the execution, right? So you buy Compulsion Games, over 5 years, we haven't seen anything. You buy Ninja Theory at the peak of their popularity. They just dropped Hellblade. It was such an amazing game, got so many awards. And the first thing they drop is the turd that was Bleeding Edge. Then you wait 5 more years and they drop Hellblade 2, which just did not live up to the original. Then you go out, you buy one of the biggest publishers of all time, ZeniMax Media. And you get all these great studios, and immediately you get duds. You get Starfield, which did not live up to the hype. You're talking about a game that was hyped for like a decade, right? I don't care how much you like the game. That's great. That's your opinion if you really super duper enjoyed it. But it's an objective fact that the game did not live up to the hype that was built behind it. It did not deliver the way that it was supposed to deliver. Then you have this amazing team at Arcane, and they drop Redfall. Awful, right? Definitely wasn't ready. Yes, Xbox could have stepped in and delayed it another year, and I think it would have been successful if they delayed it a year. And then you look at other stuff, Ghostwire Tokyo, 1 year exclusive to PlayStation. That doesn't help you. And it also that's not a system seller. Deathloop would have probably been kind of nice, but contract was already in place. It was a 1 year exclusive for PlayStation. By the time it dropped an Xbox, it wasn't really anything special. Double Fine has released only one game so far in over 5 years with Psychonauts 2. It was phenomenal, but it was multi-platform. So you realize, what was it? I forgot what the name of the State of Decay team was. You bought them, you've got nothing from them yet. So, you just notice that, like, yeah, man, the execution here is just kind of crazy. You buy Activision, Overwatch is losing popularity. It's not as popular as it was. There's just so many things that you can look at where it's like, I'm not trying to say it's bad luck. You can't chalk it all up to bad luck, but the execution is just like, yeah, the execution just wasn't there for you guys to capitalize on what was happening. And you notice like so many pivots that they've made as a company that just haven't worked out. And the irony of what's happening to Xbox is they're now in a position where once again, it's almost like they've reached a golden moment, the moment they've been building towards, where it's like, cool, we got this game, that game, that game, that game. And it feels like the next 12 months are just hit after hit after hit. Its software is about to deliver. Compulsion Games is finally about to deliver machine games with Indiana Jones. Avowed is looking pretty cool and fun. Maybe there's another Forza being cooked up somewhere. Fable looks really cool. Towerborn seems interesting. The what you call that game? The Clockwork game. I forgot the exact name. Clockwork Revolution, something like that. That looks like an interesting title. Gears of War E-Day sounds really cool. So they're finally at State of Decay 3. Maybe it might be a banger. So now they're finally at this point where it's like, yeah, we're showing you the bangers. And they ran out of time. And Microsoft is saying you're too late. Sorry, you're just too late. We need our investment back now. You asked us to spend $70 billion. They spent close to $100 billion on this sector within the last decade. I'm sorry, but you're out of time. And I think that this is honestly the first moment where I'm not going to go as far as to say that, yeah, I think it's time for Phil Spencer to be replaced. I wouldn't go, I don't think I'd go that far. But I'm listening if people talk about like, hey, maybe it might be time for a bit of a leadership change because something's obviously going wrong over there at Xbox. But I think the big thing to remember is, once again, they had to do this. They literally have no other choice. So where do you go from here if you're Xbox? I think the issue right now with Xbox is definitely communication and sort of setting boundaries and expectations for your fans and your future fans that are still interested in buying your next hardware. At the end of the day, when it comes to video game hardware, we're really in like the investment phase right now, where when you buy a piece of hardware, you're buying it at a very high price to begin with. So part of it is almost like you're making an investment in that brand. If you think about consoles from an ROI perspective, what's the return on your investment? I think pound for pound, the best ROI this generation has been Nintendo Switch. It's not even close. The amount of value you have gotten from those $300 that you dropped 7 years ago is insane, right? Way higher value proposition that you've gotten from PlayStation and Xbox. I will not be taking questions on that subject. That's just a fact. I wouldn't even argue with anyone. PlayStation, though, has also given you a pretty good ROI. There's a lot of healthy, pretty good exclusives that have been there. You know, there are a few key PlayStation 5 exclusives that you know that you need this console to get it, right? Spider-Man 2, Wolverine coming out, the Stellar Blades of the world, even some games that have sort of become console exclusives like Black Myth Wukong, for example. You know, Astrobot looks phenomenal coming out this year. There's only one place to play that Astrobot game that looks amazing, right? Very, very different from Xbox. But one great thing about a PlayStation player is that they know what to expect out of their hardware. When they buy a PlayStation 5, PlayStation's been very transparent in letting them know, look, if it's live service, Concord, Fair Games coming out soon, Helldivers 2, that's coming day one of PC. We want the players. We want a really big install base when we launch, right? So you're letting PlayStation gamers know that now. And it's like, if I'm giving you that information, that means that you'd rather buy a PC to play Concord or Helldivers 2. I'm good with that. Cool. But they've also told their fans that if you want core PlayStation experiences, the Spider-Mans, the God of Wars, the Last of Us's, you're going to need our dedicated hardware. If you don't get our dedicated hardware, you're going to have to wait until the PC version comes out. So right now, that PC window is close to 2 years, and it is getting a little bit shorter and shorter. It is shrinking just a tiny bit, right? But for the most part, PlayStation has been able to stick to that messaging. I guess the only outlier would be Lego Horizon Adventures, I guess, would be sort of the only other outlier. But even that, there's still communication there where they're letting people know, like, look, this is a family game. It's more for kids. It's not the mature story-based, amazing action titles that you're used to. When we announce Ghost of Tsushima 2, you're going to be playing it on PlayStation. You're not going to be able to play it anywhere else. That is so important. Because once again, when you buy a console, you're not just buying it for the games at launch. You're buying it because you're hoping that you're going to get 5 to 7 years of really, really great games out of it. Xbox right now, they're getting a lot of short-term gains, right? They're able to build up their IP a bit. They're able to get a lot of these sales. They're building up their player bases. But then the problem is that you're sacrificing your long-term gains. So the problem that Xbox is presented with right now is that they're running out of reasons to convince someone to buy the next Xbox. PlayStation, on the other hand, with PlayStation 6, they're not going to have that problem. What's going to happen next year is we're going to begin to see the migration of PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 Pro, right? With the release of Grand Theft Auto 6. PlayStation has told us it's a fact that their player base is split pretty much down the middle 50-50. 50% of their active PlayStation player base is on PlayStation 4. The other half is in PlayStation 5, which means that there are a lot of people who are choosing not to upgrade, which makes sense, right? Because the majority of games that are announced for PlayStation 4 kind of are still coming out on announced for PS5 are still coming out on PS4. There are a few games, like especially this year, where it looks like a lot of companies are saying, no, Assassin's Creed's, the Horizon, the Black Myth Wukong's, the Stellar Blades, like, no, you need new hardware. But I think for a lot of people, especially thinking about PlayStation 5 Pro, they know that when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, by default, the best place to play it is PlayStation 5 Pro, because there is going to be no PC version. It doesn't look like Xbox is interested in creating a Pro version of the console. They really shouldn't at this point. So that's where we're going to start to see the migration. But an interesting thing is going to happen with PlayStation 6. You're going to be able to convert a lot of PlayStation 5 players by default. But then you're also going to get a large migration of PlayStation 4 players that are finally going to migrate to PlayStation 5. Unless there's another pandemic, right? So you're banking on in 2026, when PlayStation 6 comes out, that they're going to be readily available. And you're going to have a migration from PS4 players to PS5 players. That's going to be very difficult for Xbox now. And the reason why it's difficult is because gamers are running out of reasons to convince other people why they should buy an Xbox. Because at this point, if someone asks me about buying an Xbox, I would always tell them, how do you feel about PC gaming? Because let's be honest, a PC is, by all intents and purposes, a better Xbox. You get access to every single title, right? They don't split it. Every game that's announced for Xbox is always coming to PC. Yes, PC sometimes does have, their issues, right? It's not always perfect when they launch. But I don't know, for me, it's like, even me personally, I've owned every Xbox since the original one. This is, because of everything that's happening, the first time that I'm not really, I wouldn't say I'm not really excited, but I'm not 100% certain that I'll buy the Xbox at launch. Before this generation, it was always like, I need to buy these consoles. And really what it comes down to is software. I need this hardware to access this software. I need it to play Halo. I need it to play Gears of War and everything else. But throughout this generation, Xbox has shown me, well, everything we sell is going to be on PC. As we move further to digital, if I'm, as a consumer, put in a position where I am now going to be forced to buy digital, I just trust digital on PC. There's a lot more flexibility than I trust on Xbox or PlayStation, because Xbox has one store, PlayStation has one store, PC, they're competitors, okay? I just feel better buying digital on there. I have better access to sales and prices and stuff like that, unless something like that were to change. So if the Xbox Series Y, or good luck to that marketing team with naming the next one, if that costs $500, why wouldn't I put that towards a new graphics card? It's going to be very hard to convince me not to do that, honestly. Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously have to wait and see, because even if the next Xbox goes with this plan of like a cloud compute hybrid, that means that your PC games are also going to be cloud compute hybrid, which means I might not even have to buy a new graphics card if somehow you guys get the technology right? So we kind of are at this point where Xbox wants to tell you, like, no, we're still dedicated to hardware, but you're not giving me a reason to buy your next hardware. And I brought this up in my Xbox Future Explained video, where I said, with this upcoming generation, Steam now by default becomes the best core gaming hardware to play video games on. Because Nintendo, as great as Nintendo Switch is, that next one is still not gonna be as powerful to play a lot of the games that you are gonna want to play. So Switch 2 is definitely not going to be the replacement. Switch 2 is still going to remain as a lot of people's second platform. But with where we're trending with both PlayStation and Xbox, Steam becomes by default the best platform, because Steam has PC games, has Xbox games, and has PlayStation games. And that PlayStation 6 to PC window is going to shrink. I feel like by the time PlayStation 6 comes out, I think it's still going to be it's still not going to be day and date. So if you get The Last of Us Part 3 launching on PlayStation 6, that is, I feel pretty good in making that prediction that it will not be launching day one on PC. But could I see that shrinking down to a year and a half by then? Yeah, I kind of sort of could, But that's the thing. PlayStation is still giving you a reason to buy their hardware. Now, unless Xbox makes it very clear, which I think they have to for this upcoming next generation, there's no reason to trust Xbox when it comes to their exclusive titles anymore. There just isn't. We're entering a point where now there's no reason to trust Xbox when they say something is an Xbox exclusive. That's it. They've lost that trust forever. And I think, to me, the best thing they can do now is just message it, embrace it. Because I've been saying for a while, if you have a new piece of hardware coming, you need software to sell the hardware. The hardware is useless without the software. So it's very likely that the next Elder Scrolls is going to launch or be close to the launch of the next Xbox. Whether or not it's going to be exclusive, I don't know. If they go with this cloud compute hybrid, it wouldn't have to be. But for something like that, you have to be able to come forward as a platform and set the parameters and say, hey, when we're talking about epic single player games, like launching like, the next Elder Scrolls, for example, or the next Fallout, if you buy an Xbox or a PC, I guess by extension, you'll be able to play this game at launch. Everyone else, whether it eventually comes to Switch 2, maybe they can get a version there, or PlayStation 6, you'll have to wait at least 6 months. But that's a parameter that you have to set. You're still going to have a lot of gamers that are like, okay, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait for Gears of War E-Day to come to PlayStation. I'm going to go ahead and buy an Xbox. I'm one of those guys. I'm not waiting 6 months to play the next Gears of War. I'm sure there's a lot of people that's like, I'm not going to wait another 6 months to play Elder Scrolls or Fallout. But you kind of have to put that forward. If you don't put it forward, then my thought process is forever going to go to Doom the Dark Ages. Doom the Dark Ages is launching on PlayStation 5 because it has to. Phil Spencer could sit there and tell you, id Software, they told us that they wanted as many platforms as possible. That's why it's on PlayStation 5. No. You're not selling me that smoke, Phil. Phil seems like a really great guy, but that just seems like PR speak to me. Because this is the same guy that when they bought id Software, walked into these offices and said, Starfield looks great. Stop making the PlayStation version. Redfall looks great. Stop making the PlayStation version. Hi-Fi Rush, man, this looks amazing. Stop making the PlayStation version. Indiana Jones, we signed a contract with Disney, multi-platform. Get me a meeting with Disney. Yeah, guys, this isn't launching with this isn't coming to PlayStation anymore. Even though it looks like it might have changed. But for all intents and purposes, it looks like at launch it won't be available for PlayStation, right? Or maybe that's why they haven't put an actual date to it and they're just saying 2024. But that would be a crazy surprise if a PlayStation version is launching day and date. But once you do what you did with id Software and Doom, now your messaging is all messed up. Because now there's no reason, and I mean zero, there's zero reason for me to expect that Elder Scrolls will not eventually be coming to PlayStation or will not be launching on PlayStation if you don't come forward and say something. So it's like, now we're at this point where that's it. Like, the chances of games coming over are now 100%. Starfield is 100% coming over to PlayStation. Hellblade 2, I could see it happening. The only thing that would stop it is if they run the numbers and they realize, there's not enough interest in PlayStation for us to be able to make money off of this. State of Decay 3, absolutely going to be coming to PlayStation. It's just, that's it. Like, this is their new strategy. And I'm personally okay with it. I don't ever pretend to have any sort of brand loyalty to any console or platform. I'm more like, I just want to play great games. Wherever I have to go to get them, I'm cool with it. Of course, I don't want Xbox to stop making hardware. I think competition is important in order for our industry to remain healthy. But at the same time, I'm not gonna be angry about it. I've accepted it, and the reason why I feel like it's easy to accept is because this is what they had to do. This company did not have a choice. They had to do this. So I'm going to talk about this more next week when we find out this week, whatever that new game is. And I'll be curious to see if a statement is released by Phil or anyone else trying to, tell their fans to calm down, I guess. Hot releases for the week. We have August 20th, Black Myth Wukong PC, PS5. August 23rd, we have Concord coming to PC and PS5. Time for us to wrap it up. These stories we didn't quite have time to get to. Valve designer Lawrence Yang confirmed to The Verge that the company is planning on bringing Steam OS support to rival handheld PCs such as Asus ROG Ally. He claims they're making steady progress, but it isn't yet ready to run out of the box yet. So this is something I brought up in that Xbox's Future Explained video, where I talked about that this is something that Xbox needs to get way more aggressive on. That their plan to create alternatives for console gaming. And hey, you don't need a console to play the Xbox. They're taking way too long with those initiatives. Xbox Cloud is still in beta. It's been like 5-6 years or something like that, right? I don't care how much money it costs. There needs to be a team, and I think hopefully there's already a team within Windows and within Microsoft, within Xbox, that are building a light Xbox, OS that goes onto each and every one of these handheld PCs, and that Xbox is working on a handheld version of the Xbox. This isn't a question. This isn't a suggestion. This isn't a should we do this or not. You have to do this. It's just that simple. You have to do it. One thing I brought up in that Xbox Future Explained video is that Steam Deck is still very much a core product. Imagine if Valve decides to turn on a marketing funnel, a marketing faucet for the next Steam, where they advertise a $300-$400 machine that plays every PlayStation game, well, not everyone, but every PlayStation game that exists on Steam, and Xbox games and PC games. Game over. It looks like the PSN entry for Red Dead Redemption may have accidentally revealed the existence of an upcoming PC port. A portion of the game's description read, quote, experience the epic Western adventures that defined a generation, now on PC for the first time ever. This rumor has not been confirmed by Rockstar Games. So I guess not super surprising. I think we are going to see this eventually come true. Sounds okay, I guess. This sort of remaster re-release was definitely better than what they did with GTA Definitive Edition. I've been looking to replay this game, but I still have my Xbox disc, so I'll probably just replay that. But, maybe if the PC version at some point is down to like $20, I'd probably pay for it, but I wouldn't pay full price for this since I still own the Xbox version. Bully was recently rated by the Taiwan Digital Game Rating Committee for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X, causing fan excitement over a potential remaster, but that may not be the case. Bully is set to enter the GTA Plus library on August 20th, and it's possible this is where the ratings are coming from. So this is like deja vu of when this last happened to Red Dead, where people got really excited, and then they got like a really crummy remaster, and now you're seeing people getting excited again. I don't understand you guys. Do you all have short-term memory loss? I just kind of don't understand it. Like, how could anyone get excited about Rockstar announcing or potentially hinting at a remaster of anything? It's impossible for me to get excited at all. And this looks like it may be just kind of a nothing burger. But I have been wanting to replay Bully. I might get it on an emulator somewhere because I haven't played it since it originally launched on PlayStation 2. And finally, Tokyo security analyst Hideki Yasuda said in a new report that the Switch 2 would be released in the first half of the year for $499. If the next Switch is released for $500, I will eat a shoe. There's just a 0% chance of that happening. I just can't see that. There's no reason for it to be $500. After the success of Nintendo Switch, Nintendo's not going to go backwards, right? It just doesn't make any sense. That's the Xbox playbook. Hey, we saw so much success with 360. Let's raise the price of the next one. I just don't see that happening with Nintendo. The ceiling on this console is $399. I still think they're going to aim for $350 or really try to be aggressive with $300. And I've said this before, I still think a new Nintendo Switch makes the most sense, where it operates almost like a PlayStation 5 Pro, where it plays all the old games. You pop your old games in there, you get an enhanced version. Developers are going to be able to take advantage of releasing games on both pieces of hardware if they want to, but also be able to make Switch 2 or new Nintendo Switch only titles. I still sort of think that that's the direction that they'll be heading in, but obviously we'll just kind of have to wait and see what they decide to do. Shout out of the week goes to Fallout London devs Team Folon. The mod was redeemed over 500,000 times in 24 hours, setting a GOG record. They also talked about using their donations to open an indie studio to create an original title. So pretty cool for them. Make sure to subscribe to Camp Koji on your favorite podcast platform. so you can listen to it on the go. And if you already are, please leave us a review. It helps more than you know it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Please follow us on Twitter and YouTube at CamCoach for future updates. Once again, I'm Joel, and I will see you all next week.